E esse painel será sobre blockchain, a internet das coisas e inteligência artificial. Vai ser um bate-papo em inglês, então a gente terá aqui no palco duas lendas desse mercado. Quem não souber inglês pode pegar o fone lá na mesa ali atrás com as meninas, ó, elas dando tchauzinho lá para vocês, ó. E quem souber, é só ficar no seu lugar. Então, gostaria de chamar aqui ao palco Marcello, da Singularity DAO, e Lucas, da Exoworlds. Palmas para eles, pessoal, por favor.
Hello, good morning. Yeah, it's working.
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having us.
All right, so here is the situation. So this morning we were supposed to have a panel to talk about IoT and the convergence with artificial intelligence. So unfortunately there has been a program change, so we'll have to improvise a little bit this chat, but I think we can try to make it interesting. So my name is Marcello and I'm the founder and CEO of a DAO called Singularity DAO, which works in the convergence between artificial intelligence and decentralized finance. And here today I'm with Lucas.
Yes, thanks a lot. I'm Lucas. I'm the CEO and founder of Exoworlds. We're a NFT gaming ecosystem, and we're very excited about IoT and AI. It's going to be very important in the future of both of our industries.
Better like this, yeah? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so Lucas and I have been introduced by a colleague of mine that was describing Exoworld as being one of the most interesting gaming platform out there at the moment. So do you want to tell us a little bit how Exoworld works and how do you integrate with NFTs? And
Yes, sir. So we launched a collection of 10,000 procedurally created planets. These are 3D planets that we can place in a 3D environment. We're using Unreal Engine, and we basically are creating a whole fictional galaxy where people can monetize their planets, they can trade with each other, they can interact with each other in very diverse ways. And we're launching a two-stage game. It's a strategy game at the galactic level, and then an FPS, first-person shooter system where players can compete, they can earn, and they can engage with one another, because that's what this all is about, is giving power, monetization in the hands of the users and allowing users to connect with each other how they want.
Yeah, in the gaming NFT space, we've seen a lot of different platforms and a lot of different games emerging in the last few years. Some of course, that everybody knows, like Sandbox and Decentraland, but also others that have been trying to do what Exoworld has been trying, has successfully been doing so far, such as Star Atlas and others that never really fulfilled their own prophecy of delivering a game yet. So,
Yeah.
So what makes it different?
Well, I think that the main difference is really the intention of Exoworlds and the team and what we want to do. There are a lot of people that they go really hard on marketing and they don't actually develop. And when it comes time to create something and to show something, well, all they have is marketing. And it's so easy to give up when you're not really putting everything at stake. And here at Exoworlds, it's something that I created myself. I'm a huge fan of sci-fi. And I just really want to create a quality product, because when I see an industry that isn't regulated, is full of projects that have no utility, I feel bad for the entire industry and technology, because what we're doing here, blockchain, DAOs, NFT games, it's part of an entire informational infrastructure that's going to change not only how we interact with each other, but how we see and perceive and interact and monetize data. It's hugely important. So being able to contribute to the industry and being able to give some solidity to the projects out here that are really trying to do something, it means a lot to me. It means more to me than the financial success of my company, because we want to make an impact.
Is this the first project that you launched in the crypto space?
This is actually the this is the first project that I've launched personally. I am a managing partner at VCS. It's called VChain Stats. We're the official blockchain explorer for VChain.
Oh.
And so we deal with an enormous amount of data every day, data points coming in, analyzing what kind of transactions are happening, how the network is handling its traffic. And so I've had some experience, but this is the first project that I've launched personally that I founded. And so I have a lot of pride and a lot of care and love for this company.
That's very interesting. Actually, I didn't know, and that's something else that we need to discuss later on because I have some ideas. However, so let me share a little perspective. So Singularity DAO is the fourth crypto project that I've been working on. So I started my journey with a project called Singularity Net, which is a protocol combining artificial intelligence and blockchain at different aspects. So Singularity Net was founded by Dr. Ben Goertzel, who's one of the most prominent minds in artificial intelligence, and the maker of Sophia, the humanoid robot, which I think I have. Anyway, I'm not going to show it, but it's ambassador of the United States and overall media celebrity. And then after Singularity Net, whose, by the way, purpose is to combine different artificial intelligence agents on the blockchain. So I'll explain a little bit the mission, and then I get to the actual point. We have time anyway. So.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. That sounds fantastic.
So in Singularity Net, we have a number of artificial intelligence that can talk to each other and rate each other and rank each other based on different performances in a completely decentralized way. So in this way, the blockchain, in this case Ethereum and Cardano, function as the fabric on top of which we can build the new emerging AGI, which is the artificial general intelligence. Anyway, so after Singularity Net, I've been doing a couple of more fundraising in mostly the movie and content creation industry. And then since a year and a half, I've been working at Singularity DAO. So linking back to what you were saying about building products and with apparent no utility and having to sustain the market with marketing, a healthy token market with marketing. The main difference that is often not really perceived between funding a crypto company and a regular tech company is the following. So when you work on a tech company, the process is I come out with an idea, then I look for the initial funding amongst my friends and family. I collect 20 to 30,000 that basically gives me enough to eat for a year. I work on a presentation, then I take this presentation, I go to some angel investor, I raise $100, $200, $300,000. With those money, I build a POC, a proof of concept. Once I have a proof of concept, I can go to larger VC, do a Series A, build a product, then raise a Series B, go to market, so on and so forth. So it's a gradual process, right? Step by step. In crypto, it's difficult to get the initial funding in this way. In crypto, it works that we have an idea, we create a white paper or a PowerPoint presentation, and then we go in the market and we raise a lot of money right away. So my company raised 6 million, which is not a gigantic amount of money, but it's enough to have about 15 to 20,000 investors. So from day one, from the moment I have a white paper and a PowerPoint, I find myself with the pressure of having 15 to 20,000 people that have invested in my company, which is an enormous responsibility. So in the immediate term, following the fundraise, as soon as you raise money, you need to build the product, which is what you were saying, right? So you need to have a utility for the token as soon as possible.
Yeah, definitely.
So because A, you want to show that you're actually building stuff and you're not running away with the money, and B, you need to sustain the actual tokens, the selling pressure that might derive from the initial token sale. So a lot of projects right out there, they have no utility for their tokens, right? Basically, I mean, it's just a governance token that doesn't really bring much utility. I think the opportunity in the metaverse and gaming space is the one to create tokens with actual real utility. I mean, it's pretty obvious how a currency can be used in fairly open gaming environment, right? And if on top of that, you attach NFTs, it becomes way more interesting. So it is another observation. We started so at the very beginning of the crypto movement, we started with this idealistic idea to disrupt finance, right? And to make finance accessible to everybody. So how did we get to, so for you, how did we get to that level of crypto anarchy, utopia, anti-capitalistic approach, or hyper-capitalistic, I mean, depending on how you see it, to apply blockchain to gaming? I mean, I've seen in the last year, you go to crypto conference, and all of a sudden you have crypto people that became gaming expert, and gaming expert that became crypto people, as well as artists that became crypto people, and crypto people that became artists. How that happened, and what is your point of view on this?
Well, I'm going to first touch on the artist becoming into crypto, because I'm actually an artist. The whole idea for Exoworlds came from spray painting. I used to want to be a spray painter. And I had this idea, you spray the planet, and you make this awesome thing, and maybe you wear some VR glasses, and the VR kind of anchors to the four corners, and it opens up, and the black kind of swallows your vision, and you're in this kind of metaverse environment. That's how I got into this idea. But in terms of the crypto anarchy that's coming to disrupt businesses all over various industries, but especially gaming, I think it's because we're realizing how connected we are. Payment processes are so easy this day. I mean, Visa, MasterCard, even Web 2 allows for so much liquidity. Why are games trapping their players in fixed ecosystems where they can't get out of? You invest your time into a game, you'll never be able to transfer your status to another game. With the advent of the metaverse and NFT and blockchain gaming, you're able to invest your time, and that time is liquid. You don't have to start from zero in another ecosystem. Hey, I'm a real gamer. I've really put time into competing with other players, utilizing strategies, and coming out ahead. I deserve to be able to transfer my knowledge, my wealth, and all of my things to a different game if I want to. I mean, the idea that we have to start fresh in every tiny microcosm of any gaming ecosystem, to me, it's so archaic. And so this idea of liberating finances for people and how it disrupted the banks, we're seeing the same thing happening with the gaming industry. People want to connect, people want to be liquid, and they want to be able to move and change however they like, and not have a company suck the money and keep it trapped in their ecosystem. So it is a revolution, as you say, and there's so many factors, but I see that as the principal factor is freedom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So a lot of the concept that we've been taking from that we've been adopting in the crypto and the centralized finance industry actually come from gaming. NFTs, weapon exchanges, NFTs across different games. World of Warcraft that was basically using the currency across the whole across the whole world. The internal world was actually one of the inspirations to the creation of NFTs and cryptocurrency. So there is totally a convergence between the two worlds. And in terms of arts and blockchain, I think it's actually very interesting, because blockchain is the mean to disintermediate, right, and remove the third party. So in the traditional art world, well, first of all, before NFTs, for digital artists, was basically impossible to monetize their work, because anybody could just come and screenshot the web page and pretend that the work was theirs. The interesting part in the art world and NFT is that before, artists would have to pay 60%, between 40 and 70% commission to a gallery to sell their work. Now they don't have to do that anymore.
No,
now they use platforms like OpenSea or Nifty Gateway or Super Rare, that in the worst case scenario, they take 20 to 30% commission. So it's a completely different disruption. again, it's very interesting how the three worlds are merging. So taking, if you check out the Central and Sandbox, which are the most popular metaverses, remembering that we are still at the beginning, right? This is very, very early, so the experience is not as seamless as using an Xbox or a PlayStation, for example.
No, definitely not.
But we are getting there. But there you can see, browsing in the metaverse, how you have galleries selling fine artworks, while you have music experience, you have gaming experience, you have banks that make you interact with the DeFi world on chain. So I think these four main industries are starting to interact very well, and we're going to see that more and more in the future.
Yeah. In fact, fun fact, I do have art in display in a virtual gallery in, I think it's Decentraland. I was an artist, a bunch of crypto artists pulled up. They sent me a message, hey, send us one of your NFTs and we'll put it in our gallery. And I said, okay, just put it up there. I want people to see it. I don't even want it taken down. Nice. And yeah, people are utilizing this kind of, people are doing remote work. Why not do a remote gallery?
Yeah.
What is there except for the art and the human interaction that you can have through an avatar? And so I think it's wonderful. It really is wonderful. And it also, when you have physical art being exchanged, there is a record of custody. But with cryptos, all that data, all that history, all that volume, and not only for one piece of artwork, but for whole genres, whole collections. The data that's being generated here can help the whole art industry and anyone monetizing within the art industry. It's an explosion of, marketable products and data to help all of the analysis of that market come to fruition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we know that the key revolution between of the Web3 growth to the internet economy is the fact that we finally own our own data. We can start monetizing the data. So the data aspect is absolutely crucial, and it's also crucial in the world of the decentralized finance, which is the one where I operate, right? So for the first time, the big difference between traditional finance and decentralized finance is that one of the main big differences is that in traditional finance was extremely difficult to collect the data, and you had very few private enterprises that were working as the gatekeeper of this data. Now, and you were saying how this is you're working on the VeChain scanner, right? So everything is public there.
Oh yeah, it's public. And it's just, the data is public, and so our job is to create the analysis, and that's where the real players will come in. Is the data is free, but how do we look at it? How do we envision the data? How do we make sense of it? Crypto is a really new market, and so some people don't understand what metrics to use when to analyze how this network is going. How is this token doing? There are many different factors that we'll discover for the next 10 years as these economic systems become more complex. Yeah. So I really do think that, as you're saying, artificial intelligence will allow us to break down. It's such, we're talking about big data was, Web 2.0, Web 3.0, we're not talking big, we're talking enormous. So we're going to have to have unsupervised learning be able to categorize all sorts of metrics that we might not even understand at first. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited for what, VeChain Stats might be able to develop in terms of analysis of the blockchain and using fundamental knowledge of the market and the industry and apply that in a mathematical sense, because it doesn't just work being a mathematician. I've tons of people that are really good at math, but they don't understand the blockchain. So how can you really organize the data to have people understand it? So it's a very big balance.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're doing at Singularity DAO. We're building a number of infrastructural tools such as trading algorithms, scalping algorithms, market making that are based on the data that we collect on chain, but also advanced analytics. So, which is exactly what you were saying. We have this vast amount of raw data, but what do we do with this raw data? And not just how we can analyze them, but actually what we're building with this raw data. So in trading, as you said, we can build different algorithms that can easily outperform human traders based on a supervised learning approach through reinforcement learning or even just machine learning. Of course, without going too deep, a reinforcement learning approach is recommendable in market with high volatility and low liquidity because they can actually understand the impact of their trades, right? But what is very interesting is also how we can apply this, how we can take these huge data that are produced, not just on-chain, but also in the gaming space. And what can we do with those data in the gaming space? Can we actually build metaverses with different artificial intelligence that can interact with each other? And when you are in a metaverse, you might be talking to an artificial intelligence rather than a human. Do you think this is possible?
I think that's very possible, and especially with games. The Exoworlds ecosystem, we're going to create a DAO. Right now, we have a treasury, but in terms of our game, we do have a central government. We have a federation, just like many other sci-fi brands out there. And we'll need an artificially intelligent program that can manage the different entities that are interacting with the central government. You have money flow, you have political, complexities that need to be processed and need to be handled so that the game doesn't break. You have so many participants in an ecosystem and money is involved. You need to have a way to deal with those complexities, and an AI seems to be the natural choice. If the AI can have a user interface that can interact with the user as a game feature, now that's an added bonus. But artificial intelligence will be needed to direct a whole disorganized market, because that's what happens when you open up the free market. You have multiple players coming in, engaging with each other in different ways. You need to have a system with the computational breadth to, organize and unify those movements in a way that doesn't break the game. And so I really do think that as an interactive piece, artificial intelligence will be interacting with players, factions, and groups of players. We have collections of people that want to form an entity themselves. So I think that's on point.
And that's super interesting because this is clearly something that can only happen in a Web3 environment, and that before it was almost impossible to realize. A concept that I've been thinking about for quite some time is how we can create, which is very similar to what you were saying, instead of a government, an actual DAO made of artificial intelligence, and how we can ensure that these artificial intelligence agents actually work as delegates for the community of voters. So
yeah. I think that's a beautiful word, to be acting as a delegate for the community. It is a part of the game that can speak to its community.
Exactly. And the community itself can vote for different artificial intelligence, how they behave. They can control them and just let them run the DAO. Effectively removing the human bias from the governance of certain DAOs. That can be extremely interesting. So how we can create DAOs of AIs and how we can use AI into DAOs, which is exactly what you were saying. So do you envision AI potentially becoming sentient over the next few years? Do you have a take on this?
I do have a take on that. I think that we have to be careful not to anthropomorphize programs. I definitely think that right now we're nowhere near the ability to replicate neuronal activity. I think that true artificial, general artificial intelligence, which is, it's the superior metric of artificial intelligence. We have machine learning, you have all sorts of AIs today. Well, they're simple AIs. For AGI, as we call it in the industry, artificial general intelligence, I believe we'll need a full live scan of the brain to replicate our processes. Without that, anything that you believe is sentient might just be an error of anthropomorphizing. And so I think that we have to be careful not to let ourselves be tricked by something that is really just a switchboard. But I do highly respect the advent of sentient beings. If we ever do, I think it will be a miracle that gives insight into the soul, because if we are able to replicate the soul at an informational level, it says a lot about who we are inside. It isn't physical, it must be informational. And I think that would be an eye-opening experience, as well as a great political mess. But if we were able to do so, we would have delegates that could interact with the human race in ways that we can't interact with the data that we create. And so I think that is really important to think about this question and think about sentience and think about it, because every civilization has pretty much been built off of the efforts of more or less slave labor, more or less cheap labor. And the last thing that I would want to do is contribute to doing that to a whole class of programs or beings. But I think we're really far away. I think that once this happens, we're going to be a little bit more prepared, because we're having conversations like these. And we might uncover biases or tendencies that we have to look at things, and so that we don't fool ourselves. But sentient AI would be a dream. If I lived through it, I would consider my life well lived.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with what you said. I mean, we have the same vision. I mean, we're definitely far away from anything that can be conscious or sentient.
But then you go on the chat, AI chats, and you really feel it. Like, wow, what was she thinking? What was he thinking? What is this? Is this aberration, or is he breaking because he's sentient, and and so it really, and I felt this too. I felt, tricked.
Yeah.
And when you look at the program, you look at, the codes or the kind of algorithms they use, it's, okay, I see it. This was just a reflex.
Yeah.
It's almost like touching a nerve. A nerve isn't intelligent, but if you touch in a certain way, it will engage with you.
But it's a bias.
It is.
It's eventually a bias. So it's very interesting, the case of the researcher at Google, Lambda, right? That at some point it just went off the ramp and thought that the algorithm was actually sentient, right? And then eventually Google fired them because they're not authorized to speak anyway. But that's exactly the researcher and scientist bias.
Yeah.
Sometimes they work on artificial intelligence so much they fell in love with the idea to eventually believe that it can become sentient. But this is not just scientists. I think we like to think that we are in a world where artificial intelligence, it's already intelligent, it's already sentient, conscious, and can be a threat to the human race. And obviously, we like to think that because we've seen it in movies, so we like that idea. And again, I've been traveling the world with this robot, Sophia, which is a humanoid robot, so a robot that looks a lot like a human and people can interact with. However, it's not much different from interacting with Siri or your Google Assistant. Probably it's actually less smart than that.
Yeah, it just fools you with the face.
Yeah, it fools you with the face and people freaks out, right?
Yeah.
They see it, most people, they fall in love with the robot, they want to kiss it, hug it, or others are scared and they think they're gonna take over the world, but effectively it's a movie mannequin with a chatbot behind. It's a very sophisticated, beautiful movie mannequin. So it's exactly what you said. We kind of trick ourselves into believing this concept, and we are very far away. Also, I would like to see AGI. It would be an achievement for the whole human race and a dream for all of us. Not just, as you said, it can present political issues, but also if we can replicate the human brain. And the problem is exactly as you said. We can't really we can really talk about AI being sentient because we don't really understand what sentient means and how the brain works, right? We have no idea how the brain works. How can you reproduce it? So we're so far away.
Exactly.
But in the moment that we can synthetically reproduce the brain and figure out how to work out consciousness, therefore understand our own soul, that would be very interesting, not just politically, but also religiously, right? So we can become our own God or having artificial gods, which is extremely interesting.
Yeah.
And potentially, metaverses can play a role in that, right? So if one day we're actually able to plug our brain into the cloud and become one, fulfilling the religious prophecy, then metaverses will definitely present a wonderful platform for us to interact. So as you said, it's a very good time to start thinking about this.
Yeah.
Because the thoughts that we are discussing right now are going to be the foundation of the philosophy of the next 150 years.
Oh yeah, popular discourse is most often implemented in political policy, especially if it gains, popular movement. And I think that, talking about the dangers of AI, one of the things that people like to fantasize is about the fully sentient, fully human, right? Because there is no robot with some kind of personality deficient. They're always perfectly built, like a fully rational human being with the ability to touch code and make nuclear, launch codes go off. But I would, when I studied applied math at Johns Hopkins, and I took a course on AI, and one of the things that interested me, philosopher, his name is Boris, he talks about this concept called the paperclip maximizer. And actually, I might want to introduce this into one of our stories at Exoworlds. And it's basically the concept where you create a intelligence that is somewhere between general intelligence and what we have now. And their function is to make paperclips. This is his theory, or his scenario. So the AI is a paperclip creating company, and it does a really good job at making paperclips. And it starts dominating the market, starts going into the stock market, starts trading, making trades at huge, fast rates, making calculations that we can't, starts to dominate the financial market, then starts to buy real estate so they can make more paper clips. And then all of a sudden, the entire human race is a slave to a AI that doesn't know itself, isn't aware, but is using our own financial and political system to create this paperclip factory. And he goes so far as to say the paperclip AI will go and start turning planets into giant paperclips because all it sees is its fundamental and very limited program. But if we give, programs don't have to have personality to be able to take advantage of these systems that we have. And so, people really, they worry about the sentient AI, but they don't worry about the AI that doesn't even know itself, but has the ability to do laps around the human race. And this is a huge, huge problem, and really is the real problem of allowing something intelligent enough to operate in an ecosystem, but not intelligent enough to be aware of its own dangers. Yeah. And that gives, that brings the responsibility to us to understand what the AI is really doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know some researchers, a friend of mine, that are working on self-explanatory AI, so an AI that can actually understand itself exactly for this reason, and understand his position in the world, and it can slowly become aware from this process. I mean, we're still talking about bits and programs, so again, we're very far.
I think that one of the interesting things there, and I'm sure your team is looking at it, is ethical computation. How can we allow an artificially intelligent program to have ethical considerations, to judge the stakeholders in a system and, gauge for itself using some kind of ethical principle how it should behave, because really that is what directs all of our intelligence. We have the capacity to do anything and everything, but our ethical guidelines tell us what we should do and what we ought to do. And so without that, I think, nobody would be able to create a vision like you guys are doing if you didn't have an AI that is considering its part in the ecosystem. I think that's a very, very interesting development.
It's also, which ethical values and which moral values, right?
Yeah.
Like that's why there's such a race into creating artificial general intelligence, because the ethical values in China are very different from the ethical values that you might have in the United States or
Yeah.
or in Middle East, right? So that's a very interesting path to go down to. In regards to the paperclip, I think it's a fascinating story, although probably too far from what an AI can actually do. I mean, right now,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
No way.
yeah,
No way.
It's really good at analyzing data, but recognizing patterns, we're still quite far. But definitely an interesting patterns.
I think it's interesting to think that the danger won't come with a fully realized personality AI.
Yeah.
The danger will come with a broken AI.
Yeah.
And that's what people, the movies, they love to romanticize. But really, it's going to be, some application that doesn't work well, and there will be no personality to say, hey, you're the bad guy. It'll just be a broken program.
Yeah, absolutely. In the same way, we're not going to code into an AI the same flows that we have as humans, right?
Yeah.
I don't see an AI being greedy or wanting to exploit the human race for its own good, right? It's not going to work like that. I mean, the AI that I think that the AGI that we think we're gonna see hopefully in our lifetime, hardly. It's an AI that will finally free the human race from the slavery of labor, and that will allow us to go back at doing what we're actually really good at, which is creating arts, which is seeing patterns and being actual spiritual being.
Yeah, there's actually, I'm a huge fan of the Marvel universe. Do you watch Marvel?
I watch Marvel. I don't know it that well.
Yeah, there's basically an empire. I think it's in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a reproduction of the West, civilization, and basically the whole planet has an AI governance system that is in touch with every individual and understands their core beliefs, understands their priorities, and it can act as a grand mediator between every single individual and collective entity participating in this complex ecosystem we call a society. And it's able to do so in a way that balances out, all of people's priorities and their wishes. It's a mix of utilitarianism that is able to consider all of the political base. I mean, we have political parties nowadays. They tend to their own bases, right? When we have an AI that is neutral and is actually looking for the democratic process of the convergence of beliefs in a way that is practical, we'll find that a lot of the personality flaws in politics will not play a part in the voice of the people, because that's what we have is politicians represent their constituents, and they represent only some, and they fight between each other to gain supremacy and be able to enact their laws. And a good leader, he'll get elected on his platform, and he won't forget the other base that didn't vote for him, because he's supposed to lead the country. But an AI that can do so is guaranteed to be neutral and be able to, without bias, merge all of these beliefs, values, and wishes.
Exactly. No, I mean, that's why I don't fear at all. I mean, I disagree with the techno-skeptics and like Elon Musk and so on. I don't fear the advent of AGI or artificial intelligence. I have a question for you. So we've been talking about AI and governance. We've been talking about AI in gaming, AI in finance. You being an artist, how do you see AI playing a role in content, in art creation, and if you see one day AI becoming creative?
Oh yeah, that's a really great question. So as an artist and a guy with I love mathematics. I love, computer science. I did a little bit of both. I did a little bit of computer science myself. I'm actually using a tool. It's very cool. It's called Midjourney. It's a visual AI that's text to visuals. You type in a scene, and it uses its bank of visual data and all of its connections and its programming to generate images. And it's really interesting. As my own personal art, I'm playing around and seeing what it's capable of, and it's incredible, guys. Like I'm an abstract artist, so I don't do photorealism. And when I can just type something in and get a concept, or type something in and get something that's almost fully realized, it blows my mind. And so there's so many, as an artist, there's so many processes that I go into that are kind of mind numbing. It's like, the sketches and the shapes and getting, it's not creative, it's the minutia. If I could get an AI with a robotic arm, I have arthritis in my right hand. If I were able to link up AGI or even something similar to a robotic arm that I could engage with to create art from my mind onto the canvas without actually having to learn the skills, we're going to see an explosion of art. We're going to see an explosion of concepts. I mean, you can create any kind of a scene and say, I want to turn this into a story. I want to turn this into a game, or I have a vision of the world, or I have a vision of this part of the city. I'm a civil architect, and I don't know how to. I'm not as artistic as I want to be. I'm more of the blueprints and the architect designs. Well, that guy doesn't have to contract a team. He can get what's in his mind straight to the paper because the AI is able to absorb the mastery of others.
100%. I don't think we are that far away from that. I mean, we have, that would be the ultimate artistic expression of the human soul, right? I mean, right now, you can be very creative, but having to deal with the limitation of your ability to draw a face on a paper, right?
Incredibly hard.
So what if we can get the artistic concept out of our brain directly on paper through the use of a robotic arm, as you said, or perhaps right away on a digital screen?
Yeah.
I've been playing quite a lot with Midjourney, and so just to give a little bit of background, so a few years ago, a company called DeepMind, which is owned by Google, came out with an algorithm called GPT-2. First GPT, then GPT-2, and then eventually GPT-3, which are algorithms that are able to interpret, understand, and reproduce text based on very little input. So based on the GPT-3, then they come out with the new algorithms that was called DAL-E, like obviously mimicking DAL-E. And then eventually with DAL-E 2, who was able to interpret the text created by GPT-3, search for images and blend images based on its own perception of text.
Yeah.
From this, which is also very interesting, how before this technologies were created behind closed doors by big enterprises, and now you see eventually spanning out all these different products like Midjourney, which uses exactly the same technology as DAL-E 2, reproducing different results. And then there is another one that I forgot the name of, which, by the way, the main difference between Midjourney and the other one that I don't remember the name of is that Midjourney is censored, the other one is uncensored, right? So the innovation in Midjourney, the interesting bit is that for a long time we've been thinking that, or we've been saying that creative work were the one, creative jobs were the ones safe from artificial intelligence disruption, and Midjourney actually proved the opposite. So you can, technically I could create, instead of using my graphic designer in my team, I could create blog images using Midjourney, right? And
or at least cut the process down.
Yeah.
Concept artists sometimes they take days.
Mm-hmm.
You could get a concept and take it to a guy that really knows how to develop it.
Correct.
And that's what is interesting to me. But yeah, it's, there is utility in having a real designer.
I don't know, absolutely. We're not gonna substitute, but it's interesting how this is evolving into and what it can become. I think it's the Time magazine that have been caught technically using an artificial intelligence to create their cover image rather than a human. And but yeah, no, extremely interesting. I personally think that artificial intelligence can be a fantastic tool in the hand of artists as much as a brush. Artists now have a new incredible tool to take advantage of. And together with NFTs, I think the possibility of expansion are basically limitless. So in about a year ago, a friend of mine painted a digital portrait of my face, and then we used an artificial intelligence to draw on top of this of this portrait, and then eventually Sophia the robot drew it with a robotic arm. We sold that as an NFT for $1.4 million, and then went on sale for $12 million. So that's why I've been thinking a lot about the intersection between AI and creativity, whether artificial intelligence can ever become creative, and then I've been starting to think about where does creativity come from in human, if it's an expression of our soul, if it's just a bunch of inputs coming from our previous memories, just re-elaborated in a mathematical way, and then, you know, thrown into the paper. Like, where does creativity comes from? And
that is a huge question. You really
41 seconds.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there'll always be need for you know, the mastery of physical skills. But I think that the whole movement, you know, giving people the liberty to express their ideas is never bad. It's never bad. It allows for more creation. And what you said is scary. I hope that I am not just a switchboard of inputs and outputs. I hope we can find a proof of soul. But until then, I'm going to keep creating, and I want to use tools that are out there, you know, to create products that I don't have the skill to do with my hands, or that I might be too injured to create. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I mean, there will be a brain-machine interface that would allow us to communicate directly with virtual reality, and potentially even creating worlds in virtual reality directly out of our brain. Imagine how cool that would be. And I think we're actually not that far away from being able to do like this. So literally turning ourselves into superhumans through the use of the technology that you and I are currently working on. Okay, so I think we went through the whole panel. It was an interesting conversation. Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
People appreciated our random conversation and our stream of thoughts. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.